Everybody, welcome, excuse me, to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking with Eric Miller, co-founder, chief financial advisor of Econologics Financial Advisors. Econologics Financial Advisors.com. Okay, Eric, it's great to connect with you. If somebody comes to your website, they're going to see when you're serious about achieving financial success. I think everybody is serious about achieving it. I think some people, if we can reverse engineer and rewind that to maybe a lot of people who may be listening or know people that this would benefit, it seems harder to actually save for financial success today. Things are so much more expensive than they were. Prices seem to be going up. Grocery store, we could name, thing after thing after thing. And so how does the typical person today pay their bills and also put away money for future growth?
Oof, boy, you just asked me like the $1 million question right there, didn't you?
You're right. I like to, we get in deep quickly here.
Yes, we do.
But that's what I think. If somebody's tuning in to listen, that's what they want to know.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it does come down to an economic reality that most people are vastly underestimating how much they actually need to live the life that they want to live. And I think it's going to start with that right there. Most people are just operating on the wrong numbers. If you think that it's going to take this to live your life, I have news for you. You're going to probably have to add 20 to 30% more if you're going to factor in, what we call a buffer or a factor of safety or whatever engineers use when they're building a bridge that says, you see a bridge that says weight limit 2,000 pounds. If you have a car that weighs 2,001 pounds, does that mean that the bridge is going to collapse? Of course not, depending on where the bridge is. But that's what I mean. I think people vastly underestimate how much they need in income, assets, and resources to do that. So that's the first thing I have to challenge people on. The good thing with business owners.
Well, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
And so that's a very big thing for people to forecast out, right?
Yes.
So let's just kind of like break things down in small bites for them, because I think even wealthy people who have the means don't necessarily pay as close attention because they have the means. And
True.
So when you forecast out, just give a simple breakdown of how to look at your expenses, where to kind of like any business, right? You want profitability and you want to make more money and cut your expenses, right? Yeah. So I listen to a podcast. My favorite podcast is Founders or David Senra, and it's sponsored by this company called Ramp. And basically the product, I've never even really looked at it, but what they talk about is how to keep your expenses tight. And today, if you can talk about that, I think that will help people right now start to get that number.
So let's talk how to get to that number. I think there's three categories that encompass that number. The first would be like, what is your lifestyle expense cost? What we call it your burn rate. Like, what is it that actually your household costs are? This could be your mortgage, car payments, insurance, whatever it is, food, whatever it is that is your lifestyle expense, whatever you decide that's going to be. That would be one factor of what that number needs to be. The second factor is, of course, how much am I going to allocate towards my future? And when I say my future, I'm talking about creating other income streams so that I'm not relying on just one income stream for the rest of my life. I think you have to factor that in. I think any business owner is going to do that. And if you're trying to run your household like a business, you have to think with that kind of thought process. That would be the second category, how much you want to allocate towards building future investments that are going to create cash flow for your household. And the third then would just be discretionary. Like it would just be things that you want to do that are going to allow you to live a pleasurable life. I'm not one of these guys that think you should just hoard everything and not have fun and not being able to have good life experiences. You have to do that. The two most miserable people I've ever met in my life are the people that just spend without any forethought, and then the people that just hoard all their money and don't. They're the same people. They're both miserable. So, I think you can break it down into those three categories. How much would you need to make to be able to do those three things? Your life would be infinitely better.
Yeah.
All those things would be covered.
Great. All right, good. Let's before we dive into the next piece, I want to talk about, and I know 20 years is a long span, but on this topic, so we're just kind of talking about the basics.
Mhm.
About 20 years ago, give or take, the average home, starter home, range from, let's say, 100 to 120, 180,000. Today, that ranges from like 250 to 350,000.
Mhm.
It's and we could point to a lot of studies and articles that say, it's hard to buy your first home today. What do people do as they're entering that phase of their life when it comes to and interest rates as we're talking right now? I'm not asking you to comment on it, but interest rates are higher today as we record this in second quarter 2026. So what do you recommend to somebody today who is struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, but want to buy a house?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a great answer to that.
Yeah.
Although I will say, you look at interest rates right now. What are interest rates on mortgages? They're 6.5%, 7%. My dad bought his first mortgage, back in the 1970s. You remember, I don't know how old you are.
22%.
Yeah.
54. I'm going to be 54. How old are you?
So we're the same age. I'm going to be 54, and I'm born 1972. So
when's your birthday?
August 19th.
May 15th. Okay.
All right, there you go. So you're a little older than me. But look, I mean, there's an economic reality to that. No one's forcing you to have to buy the home. I've heard a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't buy homes. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, a society is better off when people feel stabilized and where they're at. And I think it's really important that people, have homes. That being said, if you're just priced out of an area, I mean, I would not, from a number standpoint, I would not try to say, I'd look at your income, I'd look at your debt ratios, and I would try to make sure, like, hey, you can't exceed more than, I don't know, maybe 25% of what your income is on buying a house. I mean, there has to be some semblance of, again, if we're looking at your household like a business, there's certain metrics I have to abide by, so that you're not going to get in over your head like a lot of people did back in 2000, 2007, and 2008. So just, it's a factor of looking at your income, look at your numbers, and then, making decisions based upon that.
Okay, good. All right. So if somebody goes to your website, they're going to see that you specialize in financial advice for practice owners and associates, physical therapists, vets, dentists. My dad was a dentist, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, but on it, this is where I want to kind of dive into. You say here, because I think this is a pain point, most practice owners we advise, and by the way, I think I'm going to make a broad statement. The people that you service were not really taught necessarily business in their schooling overall. And so now, or numbers per se. So most practice owners we advise initially tell us they feel uncertain, important word, about their financial future and knew something was missing. I'm adding my own verbiage to this. What I find as a business coach, they feel it but can't define it. And then you say they were right, something in caps is missing. What's missing? Define what's missing for them.
First and foremost, the way I look at it, most people in healthcare get into it not because they want to make 8 figures. It's because they want to help patients.
Yeah,
I think that's universal for most people. And what ends up happening is that the practice and whatever they do consumes their lives, and they forget about their household.
Right.
And I think that their household is first, and they end up sacrificing everything because of the practice, and they never ever take care of their household. And it manifests itself in a number of different ways, but that to me is probably the singular thing that we end up seeing. So our job, we exist in just trying to make sure that
hold on. Before you, I just want to comment on that for a second. So are you I'm gonna, it seems to me sometimes for people who are doing this, they're very aligned with their higher purpose. They're very in line for patient care. A lot of times, like you said, they're thinking about the practice, they're thinking about the mission, they're in strong alignment typically with what they do for a living. and they're just not thinking or not worried about the house stuff that you're talking about?
It's probably a little bit of both, and
Right.
it just
One more question. And is it like,
yep,
I'll get to that?
it just becomes an afterthought.
Yeah.
It just becomes an afterthought, and
Yeah.
for us, that is, that is the big issue, because your household needs to be taken care of. It needs to be debt free. It needs to be invested correctly. You need to set it up for life. And the practice is, I look at it, corporate America, they have what's called parent companies, and then they have subsidiary companies. But all of the subsidiary companies are there for the benefit of the parent company. Well, your household is a parent company. It owns real estate, 401ks, business interests, whatever it is. It needs to, those things need to provide their assets that are for the benefit of the parent company. And the sooner that you run your household like a business, which almost none of these practitioners do, almost no business owners do in general. They don't, they spend all their time in their business. They run it like a business. They don't run their household like a business.
Okay. So let's dive into this. So rewire their thinking, rewire their thinking. So how should they be thinking? And what does, I think if I were to get into the mind of somebody listening to this, they may not even understand what that means, run my household like a business. So let's just start with simple kindergarten level. What does that mean?
If you run a business, what do you start with? Okay, I have maybe a vision or a purpose.
Yeah.
We have a strategy. We have metrics that we measure. We have meetings. There are roles that people play. Okay. There's products that we try to get out. Okay. All these things that people spend all their time on when they're running a business, so that it's profitable, so that it's sustainable, so that it can exist. Those are I would think pretty simple things that people that run a business. Oh yeah, Eric, that makes sense. Okay. So do you do those same things for your household? Or is it, I may talk with my spouse, I don't know, while we're passing each other, okay, in the kitchen about money? Do I have an overall strategy of how I'm going to create, income sources, how I'm going to protect my household, how I'm going to make sure that the legacy can continue on? Do we have routine meetings? Do I have metrics that I use to measure the overall condition of my household? And the answer to all these is that most people don't. So that's what I mean when we're talking about like running your household like a business. It's not like a 9-to-5 thing. It's just, have the same entrepreneurial approach that you take with your business. Try to apply that same thing to your household. And is your scorecard that somebody can get on your website, your free financial scorecard?
Yeah. Does that include some more verbiage about this if people want to expand on this thought?
Yeah, for sure. If you look in the financial industry, there's really no way to measure how well a household's doing other than what people, usually say, well, I got money in my bank account, or my net worth statement seems to be, okay. So we just broke down the areas of a household, the personal finance areas of a household, and said, these are the component parts of your life that you need to pay attention to, anything from taxes to estate planning, asset protection, all these things. And you answer questions, and then that'll give you a scorecard, and then you can go from there on what you want to do. And I think it's been a really useful tool for us to show people how important their household is.
So let's talk about, again, I know I'm still on your website because I like the way it's laid out, but 2 steps to a financial plan built for you. Mm-hmm. Step 1, get your plan. Step 2, implement your plan. And I see this, Eric, as a business coach, and I've seen this in business forever, where it's, people don't take the time to plan. That is a kind of a habit that people have, they resist the planning stage of things. And so why do you think people resist the slowdown, the pause to just plan a little bit more effectively? It's easy for most people to run, not easy to sit and plan.
Yeah, nature abhors a vacuum. People have all their time consumed in things that they do. Planning is generally, it's methodical, it's slow. You have to put some thought into it. And I don't know if people just don't do it or they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
You have to set aside, you have to be disciplined to do it, set aside some time to do it. And, I just think we live in a world that is not built for that right now.
Yeah.
But for those people that actually do it, they win. They win. And
when I was 18 years old, my dad was a dentist, and he came home. I was living at home. This was before, I think I started college, or maybe after my freshman year. I can't remember, but I was 18 years old. And my dad came home and he said, I signed you up for a Franklin Planner, which is now Franklin Covey, time management weekend course. It was like $99. So I said, I'm not taking course, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he's like, well, you have no choice. I already paid for it, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I took it, and it was one of the greatest things I had ever done, because I learned how to plan. I learned how to look at time completely differently than I had. And it really was a monumental thing. And that Franklin Planner class, I don't even know if they offer it. I looked a couple of years ago. I think they offer it maybe online. I don't know anymore. But it was priceless. And I often reflect on it, because I'm gonna be 54. I know you're gonna be 54. And I think, why isn't that taught in school? Right? I teach it. I do keynotes and workshops on that type of stuff now. But why isn't planning and learning how to use your calendar and just the art of planning? And when I took the class, it was before Palm Pilot. So I had like a Monarch where I would write everything out, and you were forced to take time to plan. And so today we're in a instant gratification world, right? Now today I talk about one-day business plans with clients, versus. And so how do you you said earlier, it's not easy. I can't remember your exact verbiage, but what would your tips be for someone to get them in a planning mode?
Well, I would say write it down, number one, where, again, we live in a world where most people keep everything in their head or in their, somewhere else, but they don't ever write it down. And to kind of piggyback on what you said, the best piece of advice I ever got, was do it now. Like, I love to loaf, John. I love it. I love having my loafing time. I love being able to have my free time. And the only way that you're going to have that is if you plan. Is if you actually set some time to do cycles of action that are going to be beneficial for you. And if you can just adopt that, like, instead of like, okay, I got this, I got to respond to this thing, I'm just gonna do it right now and just get it out of the way. And I think planning is probably one of those things that people just do it now. Just do it now. And you don't have to, I'm not forcing you to do everything, right? But just do one thing. Write everything out and do one thing at a time. And that right there will avoid so much confusion and chaos in your life. If you just do one thing, I don't care, once a week, once a day, and do it for a period of time, you're going to find you've established so much order in your financial life and your personal life that it's going to make a huge difference.
I love it. Tell me a mentor that got you on your track. That got you to, get into your profession, got you kind of in flow with your talent.
So I read a book called The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, who actually was the mentor of Buffett.
Buffett, yeah.
And it just was such an incredible book that it really just kind of, everything was just timeless pieces of, great investment advice. And that just got me interested in the area. And so I would say that's definitely, a book I read that influenced me.
Yeah, very good. All right, quick speed round. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Oh, geez. I would say, best piece of, I wish I could have used that "do it now" right now.
You can repeat.
I'm gonna say that is the best piece of advice I ever got is just do whatever you have in front of you. Do it right now. People that are in power in their lives do that.
Yeah, and because they do it now, they have less distractions and less that they're carrying around, and it's a lot easier to do something now and have it take a minute then think about it for 2 weeks, and then it takes 1 hour. So that whole element, I agree.
Money loves speed more than anything else.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to really get grounded, take hold, and begin to shift their narrative on what financial success is for them is
find out who in your environment is not on board with your direction and purpose, and either handle or get rid of them.
Yeah, good. Well said. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are, Eric, and where they can connect with you.
I love business owners that, obviously we specialize in the healthcare industry, but any business owners that, probably do $1 million or more in revenue, that are interested in making sure that their household is taken care of, and that are in control of their cash flow, are pretty ideal clients for us.
Eric, I really enjoyed this conversation. I always like talking about money and finances, and how people can begin to rethink and reshift their narrative on money, and how they can save and really start building their financial success. Think community, we kind of talked about a lot today, but if Eric can help you in any way, please reach out to him. His website again is, give it to him.
Econologics Financial Advisors.com.
There we go.
You can just go to Econologics, and they'll direct you right to the website.
Perfect. If you want to reach out and talk about any business coaching, you can reach me at johndwoskin.com. I'll leave you with this thought. Eric, you said it a couple times. 4 minutes a day wasted is 24 hours a year. If you adopt a do it now mentality, that's how you get 24 to 100 plus hours back into your day. Most people feel like they are running out of time or don't have enough. If you start adopting what Eric talked about, which you hear me talk about a lot on this podcast, you save time, and it just feels great, because then you can choose what you want to do with that extra time. Eric, this was great. I appreciate you. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.